Hello and welcome to Career Stories. I'm Dr. Luella Forbes.
And I'm Associate Professor Michelle Gander.
You're listening to a bonus episode where one of us,
or one of our guests,
provides practical advice to help you have a better work life.
Whether you're a leader, a manager, or a member of a team.
Thanks for being part of our podcast membership. Today we're going to talk about burnout, and I'm joined by RAAF veteran and cybersecurity leader Dinda Timperon. Dinda, perhaps you can share why this is a topic that's really close to your heart.
Absolutely. So I've always been interested in human performance, especially in the roles that I've been in and what I've been seeing. So have worked in defence, and I've seen what it's like when you just work people to the bone, and then the moment when they hit that burnout threshold, as well as in cybersecurity, it's very, very common. If you see why people are leaving cyber in spades, it's due to burnout. So it's a topic of interest for me to see how is it that we can sustain ourselves and our workforce to be doing all the things we need to do without actually hitting that point. So I've always been big into peak performance and also talking about peak performance. But I've realized whenever I speak about burnout, that's what really resonates with the audience and usually personally resonates, as in they've experienced it and I've experienced it myself. So having experienced burnout and just seeing the effects of that, it's good to be able to help guide people so that hopefully they can recognize the symptoms in themselves before getting to that point.
Yeah, and those are, working in the armed forces and then the cybersecurity, they're quite kind of intense roles, aren't they?
Very
so
intense.
when something's happening, then it's like really happening.
100%.
and it's not like you can just go home and have a nap.
Can't stop.
You
If
have
there's
to
in the
you
middle,
have to address it.
You do.
In the moment.
Absolutely.
So what I might do to start off with is, because we like being evidence-based here, what I might do to start off with is just talk a little bit about what we actually mean by burnout and what the kind of literature says.
That sounds
so
great.
Burnout is a syndrome, which means that it's a grouping of symptoms, not an underlying illness. So there could be any reason why those symptoms all group together. And so it's not like it's a disease or a kind of classified illness like depression or anxiety where there's actually kind of underlying causes. It's just the symptoms. And there's 3 symptoms that all have to happen together for burnout. So number 1 is emotional exhaustion. So that's that kind of that ongoing feeling of not really wanting to do anything or kind of get out of bed in the morning, not wanting to go to work, not really wanting to face whatever it is that you've got on today. And we're not talking about this happening for just like a day or maybe even a week. This is an ongoing thing where you're just not engaged and connected and you're feeling really emotionally flat. So no kind of ups and downs, but just emotionally exhausted. So second is kind of cynicism or depersonalization.
Yeah.
So that's where you have stopped caring about things that you used to care about. So you are the person who is really cynical about everything that your employer does because this is ridiculous and you've never done this right before, and I'm feeling really kind of quite resentful and cynical about what's happening. So that kind of lack of care, detachment, cynicism.
Yeah.
And then the last one is about, they call it reduced personal efficacy, which basically means about confidence. And so what that means is that if there's something that you used to be good at and you now seem to not be good at, or you seem to be questioning yourself all the time, you're not confident in doing it, which isn't the same as not being able to do it, by the way, but you're not confident in doing it anymore, then that is another one of the symptoms. So the 3 symptoms together, emotional exhaustion, the kind of cynicism, disengagement, and the reduced confidence, those 3 together are what make up burnout, and they all have to be present for burnout. And it's really interesting because when we did your main interview, we talked about purpose and your kind of connection to that. The interesting statistic is that if you're doing work that is really connected to your purpose, you are 50% less likely to experience burnout.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's that alignment piece.
Yeah, so that's the alignment piece because then you kind of go, well, actually, you're probably looking forward. So even though you're tired, you probably are looking forward to going to work that day. You're probably less likely to be emotionally exhausted. You're probably less likely to be cynical about it, and more likely to retain your confidence. So that's the official definition. You've used the term silent breach to talk about burnout. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, absolutely.
What that means?
So I think that organisations, firstly, I loved hearing the 3 aspects because that is the R in my REST framework. We actually delve into how to recognise the symptoms and I call it slightly different things, but it's essentially those 3. So, but a silent breach in that organisations spend often, depending on the size of the organisation, like millions of dollars on systems, but they often forget about one aspect, which is the most important aspect, which is the people that have to operate the systems. So that's why I call it the silent breach. It's the silent breach in an organisation, especially we use those words breach in cyber a lot as to how does something get in. Sometimes it's not the system, sometimes it's the people that fatigue or that hit that burnout point that causes the breach. So it's about reframing it and actually looking at the human element.
Well, as a change manager by profession, that's music to my ears because
amazing.
that is always the kind of blind spot that people design all of these amazing systems but forget that people actually have to use them.
The people behind it, absolutely.
So people are the centre of everything.
Yeah.
So what might be some early signs of burnout that you've seen in your experience? So we've kind of talked about what they are officially, but what in the real world, what does that look like?
I put it in as very similar to what you said. So I have this triangle which I use for some early signs of burnout, but to me the first one is cognitive drift, which you've explained as well, but it's when people start missing things that they normally would catch. So you can see that potentially maybe there's misspelled emails, or there's certain things that used to be really easy for someone and all of a sudden they're second guessing themselves for these basic tasks. So the first step is always when you're seeing this cognitive drift in someone, it's usually the early signs that there is burnout. The second one is the emotional signs. So things such as irritability, short fuse, where you're starting to see that they're starting to behave in a manner which is not their usual self. That is definitely another early sign of burnout. And then the third one is the behavioural side. So when you can see that their behaviour is starting to change, there's just certain signs there that you can see, you can catch the drift, because burnout, people think of burnout as that last stage where all of a sudden everything comes crumbling. But really, if you can catch those signs early, that's when someone is entering burnout, and that's where you have a better chance of helping steer it before it gets to the end.
I think those things that you've talked about are the kind of manifestations, if you like, of those 3 categories that I talked about. So I remember once being in a job, and I don't think I was burnt out yet, but I think I was getting there. And I remember in every meeting sitting there with my arms crossed and a scowl on my face because I just was like, this is ridiculous. Like, and it just kind of cross about everything. But that was the behaviour coming out.
The behaviour.
That was representation of that kind of cynicism that I talked about.
And you start to see it. And I see it in my team too, and all myself, when people that are usually really happy to do things, all of a sudden you see them in calls, they're more often than not starting to get, cynical, or they're starting to get a bit, you realise it's out of character, and you go, okay, we need to do something about this and steer the ship to make their workload sustainable. Otherwise they will hit this level of burnout, even if they say, oh no, I'm fine, I've got everything. No, you can tell. Yeah.
So talk to us about your REST framework.
Yeah. So the REST framework is something I developed just in order for leaders to be able to simply think about, okay, what can I do in an organization to help prevent burnout within the teams? And so rest, because we all need rest, is a very easy way of thinking about it. So the first thing is recognize, and that's about detecting the burnout early through seeing the cognitive drift, through seeing the emotional changes as well, and through seeing the behavioural changes. So that's the R side of it. It's actually recognizing what the symptoms of burnout are early. The E stands for equip. And what I go into with equip is that it's not always necessarily a people problem, rather. Sometimes it's actually a systems problem. So a thing that we need to do is we need to equip our people with the right systems. So this means some of the stuff that causes burnout is when the human has to fill the gap that a system should do, and they're overcompensating. That can cause the burnout. So unclear workflows, not knowing who the decision-making point is, all of this messiness.
It's the clarity stuff. It's about being really clear about who needs to do what and when.
Yes.
And so there's also a bit then about having a conversation with that individual and go, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's building the clarity. So clearing up workflows, making processes, making things simple, making systems work so that humans don't have to overcompensate for a broken system, for example. You know, sometimes we have things in the company where you have to go above and beyond to do something that should take 5 minutes and it takes you hours in all sorts of different directions. If someone has to do that day in, day out, that leads to burnout. So the equip part is really looking into and delving into the company systems to see where we could build that clarity. The S is about sustain. So that's about sustaining energy levels. And that is really understanding that humans are cyclical. Like, we're not meant to go, high performance all the time, but rather we have periods where we are our best energy levels and periods where we're at the lowest energy levels. And it's about self-awareness and awareness of your team and understanding, you know, where they best operate. So one person in your team might be a morning person and, you know, okay, their energy levels are best in the morning, such as myself. And then they start to lull after midday. So where can we give the biggest, like, high impact work for ourselves in that time? Another person might be an afternoon person. The mornings they might do light admin work, and then afternoon really get into the deep stuff. So it's about understanding there has to be seasons of rest and recovery, and that's the sustain side. And
then if I can just add to that, one of the things that I quite often do with people is talk to them about what their energy levels are for particular types of activity, because your sociable energy, and so your energy to be sociable, particularly if you're an introvert like me, you kind of have to build up sometimes for that. So first thing in the morning, I don't really want to see people, but I am very good first thing in the morning for focused work and deep work, and I'm an early morning person as well, but I just like having that time to kind of think and get ready for my day. So there's actually an exercise that you can do where almost you have different types of energy. So your physical energy, your kind of mental energy, your social energy, and you actually just for the course of like a week, just rank, every couple of hours, just kind of go, what's my mental energy right now? What's my social energy right now? What's my physical energy right now? And it can help you find the right time of day to exercise, to book networking coffees, to do your focused work, so that it can help you reorganize your kind of your calendar, your day accordingly.
I love that. I love how you separate it into like social, mental and physical. That's actually a really good point, because there's different levels of energy for different things. What I usually get people to do is they log a week. So it's log your week, and it seems very similar to that in terms of actually, log your energy levels. When are you your highest? When are you at your lowest? And then you'll start to understand what your personal energy level is there. So that's the S is we delve deep into how to sustain based on your energy levels. And then the T part of the REST framework is we look into how do you go from just sustainability or just, surviving to thriving. So what does a thriving team look like? How do we build high performance into the team? How do we cross collaborate better? That side of the REST framework. Leaders.
And what we might do is I'll get you to let me know how we can let people access this, but we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
The thing that I would probably add to that is because my career has been spent working in organisational projects.
Yep.
And quite often when you're on a project, you kind of go, oh, but this is an exception. Just do this until the project's over. But the problem is the next project then starts. And
it's just around the corner.
Quite often for people who work specifically in a project environment, or if there's a big change happening in an organisation, you get this kind of promise that it's going to end. And so people will carry on and go, well, I'll just keep going until, the deadline, until the merger, until the change hits, until the new system's implemented, whatever those things are. And then, of course, when the new system's implemented, you then need
there's always something else.
Like there's bugs, or you need to do the next phase of development, or whatever those things are. So I think just a kind of reflection from my perspective that actually the promise that it's going to end is never true.
You need to deal with it in the
you need to
now.
deal with it now.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something, what you're mentioning there is something very relevant in my industry. So we always have new uplift projects every single time. And you think people would say, oh, I just need to keep going till this one ends. But when that ends, there's another one on the roadmap, and there's plenty. And that's when I could feel, even within my own teams, the feeling of starting to burn out. So you need to make it sustainable during.
Yeah.
Because there is really no end. Even when the project ends, there's something
there's
new.
the next project,
Yeah, 100%.
So that framework is to help leaders.
It's to help leaders recognize, but it's also to help people. So I delve at it from different angles depending on who I'm speaking to and what audience.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a kind of one tip that you could give?
Yeah.
So if there's somebody right now who feels like we've talked about some symptoms here, and if people feel like they might be suffering from maybe 2 of them, but then maybe not quite at 3 yet, or they're getting those early signs that you talked about, the irritability, kind of those things, what would you suggest that they do?
So there's a couple of things. So the first one is I'd have them ask themselves, what feels heavy right now, and really think about what is it, because it's not everything that feels heavy. There's usually, you can pinpoint it. So what feels heavy right now, and what do I need to do to help reduce that load, for example.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love to do is to completely switch what you're doing. So sometimes when you're feeling that level of burnout, it's actually because you're not doing enough of what lights you up. So maybe that means putting it down. I know sometimes it's work related, but outside of that work time, putting it down and actually going and doing something fun, something that you're passionate about. I also go and delve into, there's actually 7 different types of rest. So, people think I just need sleep, maybe burnout, I just need sleep. But actually, there's different types of rest.
And social connection is just as important for those.
That's another,
things,
that's one of the types of rest actually. So there's social connection, like the social rest. There's the spiritual rest, maybe you're needing to connect to something. There's the one where you might want to connect with arts or with nature. So it's trying to understand what your cup might be empty with and actually going and doing that. And my addition to that would be that
you probably instinctively know, because it's probably something that you want to do. So, I sometimes have things where I'm like, do you know what, I really just want to, go to Kings Park and walk around in amongst all the trees.
100%.
And that's me looking
that.
for, so you quite often, so I think if people are kind of going, I need to know what the 7 types of rest are, you probably don't. Just go with what you're craving.
Yeah, that's probably
think
something
about
you're lacking
your
a little
instinct
bit in it.
around that. And it's probably,
That's
do you want to hang out with your friends? Do you want to be on your own? Do you want to go to bed? Like, what are the things you want to do, and go do that?
It's very true. Like I notice there's even moments in my role which can be really intense where I feel close to burnout, and you can recognize it in yourself, when you're home and you start to get snappy or whatever, and you go, I'm not usually like this. Like, what do I need? And for me, sometimes it's rest from technology where you just remove everything. And it's about understanding and just keeping it simple in that sense, but also having the conversation with someone else so that they're aware, because you don't have to hold it all on your own, and leaders and other colleagues can actually help you there, say if it's work related. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a friend before who's been really struggling, and one of the things that I said to her is, have you spoken to your boss about it? And she sort of said, oh, no, because I'm going to sort it out by myself. And I was like, they can't help you.
Yeah.
In whatever way that help comes, either, you know, a change in the role or, you know, whatever way that comes, they cannot help you unless they know about it.
100%.
And so at some point you have to let them know.
Yeah.
The one other word of caution that I would probably just add is I notice that lots of people talk about burnout all the time at the moment, and it's become like this buzzword about, you know, I'm really burnt out.
Yeah.
And I think we should just be mindful of kind of overusing it as a term, because then it's kind of less meaningful for maybe the people who are really suffering. And so, you know, before you sort of say, I'm burnt out, maybe think about, actually, are you just tired? Are you still engaged, but you've just been working really hard and you haven't taken any leave all year and it's time for summer?
Yeah.
And you're going to take your summer holidays? Or are you actually experiencing those symptoms? Because I do think the term burnout has become very popular, which is great because it means people know what it is. But I think mindful use of it is useful for the people who genuinely are struggling to get the support that they need.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I like that, you know, in terms of making sure you're using it mindfully. I think for me, like if I hear someone say they're really burnt out, like that's enough of a cry for help in whatever level they're at, that you go, okay, something needs to change. Out of alignment and it needs to change. But you're right.
Agreed.
It might not always be burnout. They might just be like tired and exhausted, but it's
Yeah.
a sign that they're on the steps too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dinda. That's really useful insight, I think, and hopefully something really practical that people can take away. So that's all for this bonus episode. That info, we'll put all of the information of the things we just talked about in the show notes, and I will see you all next time for the next career story.
Thanks, Luella.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe in your podcast app. It helps other people find us. This podcast was produced on Noongar country. We acknowledge and respect the first storytellers of this land and the keepers of culture, and extend that respect to traditional owners and storytellers wherever you may be listening.